Hello, welcome to the class lecture on Chapter 2 in creating of a stone archway. The first thing that you're going to want to do if you haven't already is come to the Canvas course, go to this module, the second module, and click on Required Student Data Files. When you click on Required Student Data Files, you'll be presented with this page right here. You can navigate to this particular link to download the files from there, or you can download the data files within the Canvas course. Read the rest of the instructions here. Make sure that you unzip the zip file that is downloaded to your computer. When you do so, you will find that you'll get all of these subfolders downloaded for you. We're going to start working with Stone Archway Chapter 2. So if you would, once you're done with all those things, and if you need to pause this video at any point in time to get caught up, please do so. Continuing on, we're going to click on File and go to Set Project. Navigate to where you downloaded those files to. So here's the Stone Archway is the directory. Now I want to make sure that I'm going directly to the Stone Archway, so that's what the directory says here, and that you're going to that folder alone. So choose Set. Now we're going to click on File and choose Save Scene As, and it should automatically go to the Scenes folder. Now if for some reason it doesn't go to the Scenes folder, you'll want to make sure that you stop what you're doing, cancel out of this, and repeat the last step. File, Set Project, and make sure you are setting it to the Stone Archway folder. When Maya saves stuff directly to the Scenes folder, it has a good understanding of the file relationship between the scenes, the source images, and the other assets used in the document. So for this one, we're going to call this one Chapter 2 Stone Archway _, your last name. And I know along the way I'm going to encourage you to make different versions or iterations of the file. So off the top, I'm going to call it V1 for version 1. Now, whatever version you end up submitting is fine. You want to make sure that you're always creating a backup files along the way. And by backups, I mean you're going to have this first version, and when you go to save it, certainly press Control S to save it, but you also can go to File, Save Scene As, and call it version 2. The logic behind this is that, let's say you get to version 3 and the file goes corrupt. Well, if it goes corrupt, there's no backing it up. There's no getting to the prior version. But what you can do is go back to your version 2 and start from that point moving forward. Not to say that Maya is an unstable program. It's an amazingly robust program. But that being said, sometimes different computers, different platforms, different operating systems, they have issues with Maya along the way, like any program. And so you don't want to get stuck in a position where your file goes corrupt and you have to start from scratch. All right, so that being said, we've got our file name saved with our last name included in the file name. So we'll choose Save As. Now to get started, you'll notice at the bottom here, whenever you see the result : this is usually a good sign. It also is pointing out exactly where my file was just saved, so keep that in mind as well. We want to set ourselves up with image planes. So I'm going to go to the four-way view on the left-hand side and go to the View menu on the left-hand side. Now, mind you, this is the front and this is the side view. So we're going to go to View, go to Image Plane, and choose Import Image. And from here, we're going to go to the Source Images folder. And inside of here, to get started, we're going to start off with the Stone Arch grid and choose Open. Okay? So this gives us the front view of it. The next thing we're going to do is go to the View menu and go to the Image Plane, and this is in the X version, or the X direction. And once again, we're going to go to the grid and choose Open. So now you'll see in the perspective window, we have Alt left mouse button, both of these image planes are on top of one another. Well, this is going to be challenging, so we need to move these backwards a little bit. So if you would, click off so nothing is selected, okay? And then you're going to want to swipe one of them. Now, the one I've just swiped is going to be your X one, and the way I can tell is because I've got a green wireframe around there. And you'll notice in the bottom right corner, or bottom left corner, this is the X direction that I'm looking at. So when I push this particular image plane backwards, you want to make sure that you're moving it in the translate X direction, in the negative X direction. So I'm going to go with -12, precisely. So -12 and press the Enter key. All right, likewise, I'm going to click off and then select the wireframe of the other one. Okay, so sometimes clicking on it, it may or may not select it, but if you swipe the corner of it, you'll pick up the wireframe of it. And likewise, we're always moving these in the direction which we are looking at the camera. So this is the front or the Z1, and we are going to move it -12 as well. Make sure you're moving into the negative direction because we're about to create our new archway from the 0, 0, 0 quadrant, which happens to be in the center of the grid. All right, so at this point, we've got both image planes there. Now, by accident, I could technically select or swipe these and move them, which would be unfortunate because we're going to be trying to model the archway based on the exact placement of these templates. So what I will do now is I'm going to swipe through both of these image planes. And once again, you may not see that both of them are selected because one has a green wireframe and one has a white wireframe. So I want to make sure that both are selected, and then come down to the lower right corner of your channel box. Click on the icon that says create a new layer and assign selected objects. It has a blue sphere on top of it. So we'll click on this, and then I'm going to double click on the word layer 1 and call it template. And choose save. And let's see if it actually works. So if I press the V for visibility, both of these items should disappear, and then pressing the V again should make them reappear. If by chance one of yours was not attached to it when you press the V key, no big deal. Swipe whatever one wasn't selected. So now you've got it selected. You come back to the layer area, right click and choose add selected objects, and that will add your selected object to there. Now the last thing we want to do to once again ensure that these don't accidentally move into a different direction because they're perfectly placed as they are, in this third column of the layer area, we want to click on the T button or the empty button to a T, transparent, and then the T turns into an R for render. Now if I click off and try to swipe these a second time, nothing is selectable, so it won't actually move by accident. Next thing is that in the perspective window when you're looking at it, you want to make sure that your archways are basically looking the way we have them right here, with the left side with this little arm sticking out, and the right side has this red ink on the edges of it. All right, so now the process of Chapter 2 goes about creating this archway using a good old-fashioned cube. So let's go back into our four-way view, and we're going to use ourselves a poly cube, and using the tools of the W key, we're going to align this poly cube. From the side view, it's going to go in front of the side view, and you can see I'm dragging it from the side view, and from the front view, which is your left side, you want to line it up with the front view. Okay, so we're going to take a moment here to align this perfectly in the lower left corner of the archway. Okay, and then I'm going to right click and go into vertex mode. Swipe, don't just click and drag, but swipe the right two vertices. Use your move tool and drag them to the right to make sure that they're the perfect size. Now some might say, well, why don't you use the scale tool? And that's fine, except the scale tool moves things in both directions because it's based on the pivot point. So we could do that, but we'd want to change the pivot point. All right, and so then once again, I'm going to tap into the side view. Make sure you're always doing the front and the side view together. Don't forget about one view and say, oh, I'll come back to it, because it messes it up along the way and it's just far more difficult to fix later on. So once again, the side view will make this a little bit wider. Go back into object mode. Ooh, crazy. Object mode. All right, so now you can see that we are still in perfect alignment on the left as well as on the right. Okay, so now what we want to do is select the vertices on the top. Now I'm right clicking and holding. You can also use the modeling toolkit. This is the icon at the top. You might have a tab for it on the right hand side. So we can use multiple different methods of getting to vertex mode. We'll right click and go into vertex. And once again, we want to swipe over the top area, not just click and click, but swipe so that way we get all four vertices. As you'll see in this view right here, we've got all four vertices selected. And we're going to use the move tool. And once again, you want to make sure you're not using this little square in the middle of the move tool. Rather, we're using the whole arrow to pull it upward, and this will keep it nice and square. Okay, so you can see it better like that now. All right, moving forward, we're doing great. Let's go through and extrude the bottom. Okay, so many different ways of doing this. The easiest way, in my opinion, will be to select the bottom face. You can see I've selected face mode. You can also right click and go into face mode from there. Your F key is how you frame a particular object. I'm going to make sure that I only have this one face in the bottom selected. No other faces are selected. If you can't see what we're doing, you might want to press the F key and zoom in, or you can always use the Alt middle mouse button as your tracking device. I happen to have a Apple mouse which doesn't have a middle mouse button, which is challenging, so I tend to use the F key to frame objects more often than the middle mouse button for tracking. All right, so now for us to do extrude. So again, there's multiple ways of you getting to the extrude tool. On the right hand side is the extrude menu, so I'm going to click on that. And you'll notice that on the ledge of this pillar that there is a little ledge. So before I go pulling this down, I'm going to move this over to the right just a little bit. And you'll also notice it in this window as well. Move this poly face out of the way. And we're going to drag this to the left just a little bit. And again, you can see a little bit of the line sticking out to the sides. So this is going to give us what you see up here, a nice little platform for the birds to sit on, so to speak. Okay. And now we're going to extrude it a second time. So we'll press that extrude button again, and this will drag it all the way down to the bottom. And you can see it's doing it in both directions at the same time because we have the whole face there. And once again, we will repeat the expansion of the scale on there. And I did this from the front view, and then likewise I'll do it from the side view as well. And so that gives us the bottom of our pillar. All right, so let's go back into object mode and see where we are at. So here is where we are at with the pillar. I didn't mean to necessarily go into four-way mode there, sorry. All right. So next thing we're going to work on is moving upward of the pillar. Let's see. We're going to once again go back and select that top face. Now if the grid is in your way, you can feel free to turn off the grid button right there. Go into face mode. We'll select that face. And so we'll use a similar technique that we just did just a moment ago. And actually, if you just give me a second here, I can open up my tools, go to view, go to camera tools, and click on this stippled little bar at the top, and this will detach my camera tools, which this will make it a lot easier for me to use the tracking tool since I don't have a middle mouse button. So I can use the tracking tool and I can move things down and over. So that's much easier. All right, so going back to this top face is selected, we're going to use the extrude tool. So another way of using the extrude tool is to click on the icon that I'm pointing to at the top here. When we click on this, we can use the blue arrow to pull it up. And once again, repeat the exact same steps we just did. On the side view, make it wider, and then likewise on this side view, make it wider. And this is using the scale that comes with the extrude tool. As a reminder from previous classes, you want to make sure that whenever you're extruding, you're always using the tools that come with the extrude tool. While your habit might be to click on W, E, or R for move, rotate, or scale, by you using the tools that are within the extrude tool, number one, it's quicker. You're more productive with just having all the tools right here. Number two, it also maintains the pivot point of the objects that you have selected when you chose the extrude. So keep that in mind. All right, so now we're at a point where we have to start building up the top of this archway here. So once again, we're going to go with the extrude tool. And in this case, I'm going to click and release on one of the scale buttons. And when I clicked and release on one of those scale buttons, you may have noticed, or maybe not, that I didn't drag it, I didn't do anything with it, I just clicked and released it, and now the center scale tool has become available to me. So if I click on the center scale tool, you may not see what's happening, so let me kind of look at this from a different angle. You see how by me scaling it inward, I'm starting to create that bird's ledge that we wanted down at the bottom, also on the top. All right. Next thing, we're going to go through and do another grandeur extrude. So we'll click on the extrude and we're going to go all the way to the top. Okay. So this is an important detail that we're going to go all the way to the top because the next tool that we're going to be using to do this is going to be the insert edge loop tool. All right, so now that we've done that, the insert edge loop tool is under mesh tools and go to insert edge loop. Okay, so we're going to click on this insert edge loop and I'll click and hold, and I should probably turn on my x-ray so I can see this just a little bit better. So hang tight and I will do just that. Alright, so I've added in some edge loops. Whenever you are done with the insert edge loop, always press the Q key to get out of the tool. Otherwise, everything you click on is going to continue to start creating or adding more edges in there for you. Alright, so make sure you save this file. So I will do a Control S to save this. At this point, if you want to go to File, Save As, you can choose it as a version 2. So File, Save As. And then, so we've saved it under version 1. I just resaved it under that. And now I'm going to call this version 2. So true save as. So now I'll have 2 versions of the file. Alright, so the next thing we're going to do is start aligning these edges over to the angle of the archway as we see here. So once again, we're going to want to go into vertex mode is probably the easiest. If you go into vertex mode, you're going to want to make sure that you swipe and don't just click and drag. And again, the rationale behind that is that we are selecting both vertices on the front and in the back that you can't really see while we're creating this archway. The last thing I wanted to show you was if you go to shading X-ray, this will allow you to see through a little bit better through this area here. So once again, I've swiped these 2 vertices. We're going to move these over. I'll swipe these 2 vertices and once again move them over. Swipe these 2 vertices and move it over. And select these 2 vertices and move it over. So now as you can see, our lines are starting to not follow the template in place, which is okay. These are just guidelines to suggest what you could do. But nonetheless, if we go back into the mesh tools and use the insert edge loop tool, we can insert ourselves an edge loop along this little arch area right here. And while yes, it does give us some extra edges going downward, that's okay. It does give us the opportunity to go into vertex mode and align these vertices just a little bit better. So once again, make sure that you're always using a swiping motion so that we are swiping all the vertices on the front as well as on the back. Okay, so we finished off the top of that. Let's see where we're at with these. So we'll swipe these 2 and move these over to kind of get them out of the way a little bit. See where we're at with those, and then we'll swipe these 2 and place them in alignment with this angle right here. So the actual tower is not looking too shabby at this point. We can continue to model out to the left-hand side here. But before we do that, we're actually going to take this opportunity to select both faces on top now. So we're going to go back into face mode and shift select both of the top faces. And we're going to extrude these going upwards. Okay, so now we've got both of those in place. And then lastly, we're going to unselect this one that's over this area right here and extrude yet one more time and pull it straight on up to give us the top of this tower right here. So now we've got all the faces in place that we need over here. This allows us to continue extruding to the side. So again, we'll select both faces. We'll use the extrude tool. We'll pull these forward. I'm going to pause because this looks overwhelming, right? And so once again, we'll go into the vertex mode and we're going to pull this vertex upward and move it over a little bit. And then once again, we can go back into face mode, select both of the faces, extrude again. Now you'll see that my extruding tool is giving me a weird angle. So if I were to pull this out, it's going to go at the angle in which we're at, which is absolutely fine. If you wanted to keep it vertically straight, there's this little power button notation that I'm wiggling around. So if you click on that, that basically makes it so that way whatever you move is going to stay on the world axis, and it keeps it nice and straight across the top, which just makes it less of that something you have to edit down the road. And then we'll do one more extrude and wrap this up. I'm going to click on that power button once again to ensure it to stay flat, and we're going to call that good. Alright, so then getting back, I'm going to spacebar over this lower left corner. This now becomes my focus. So we're going to get out of that extrude tool by pressing the Q key, and then we will go into vertex mode and do some final adjustments here. Getting into the move tool as needed. Do this, and then a neat little trick when you're trying to make sure that your lines are in alignment, especially along the middle point right here, where we're going to mirror it over, is that you can swipe all of these. Okay, so I don't know if you can see, I've swiped all 6 of those vertices that are right there, and I'm going to turn on the scale tool, which is your R key. And I don't know if you can notice this, so I'll try to be delicate with this. When I drag this scale tool from the side and I release it on top of the center of the scale, it basically takes the offset of what's too far to the right and what's too far to the left and basically lines them right down the middle. And so it becomes very centered. Alright, so that's kind of cool. Move this down just a smidge. So that is the process of getting ourselves started with our tower, part 1. Save your file. This is, once again, version 2. Take a break and we'll come back with the next version, or next video.